June 6th, 2019 was a really good day for a Las Vegas road trip. This was the first picture I took, which is not too far from my home. And here's another picture I took just a little further down the road. The skies were perfect, and that bode very well for this springtime trip to Vegas. My first stop was not too far from where I live, probably about 15 miles. As I was driving along, I looked to the south and there was a pretty nice view. Looked like some very good landscape, and so I pulled over and got a few shots. As you can see, there's some pretty nice country not far from where I live. It's very open, kind of deserty, with lots of sagebrush. I enjoyed the view there for a few moments and got back in my car in the 73, heading over to I-15. Then I took I-15 down and took the Pleasant Grove exit, and that was where I picked up my friend Laura. Laura is also from Las Vegas. She enjoys Vegas road trips just as much as I do, so she made for a very good traveling partner. So I picked her up and we got back on I-15 and started heading south towards Las Vegas. The first leg of our trip was one of the longest legs. That was from Pleasant Grove to Beaver, Utah. And that is about 166 miles, or about a 3-hour drive. We did stop in Beaver for a little break, and then I did something that I have never done before on a Vegas trip. We took a detour over to Minersville, Utah. Now, Laura has an aunt there, and we had prearranged that we would swing over and visit her aunt. So here's Beaver, and right here is Minersville. They're not too far apart. It's actually just 18 miles. But we didn't go straight through to Minersville. We actually stopped at the Minersville Reservoir right here. Minersville Reservoir is another place that I've never been to. So we stopped there for a few minutes and had a very nice little visit. It was very scenic and got some very good pictures. This is a picture I took somewhere in Minersville. I don't know exactly where we were, but I know we were on our way out. We had just had a visit with Laura's aunt, Aunt Laura. Laura's actually named after her aunt, and so it was Aunt Laura that we visited. And she was quite a hoot. I think she was like 95 years old, but she was still so full of life and talking about her good old days back when she lived in Vegas. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. But after the visit with Aunt Laura, we were heading out of town. But as we're heading out, we couldn't help but notice a pasture on the side of the road. And in this pasture, there were two very majestic looking horses. Now there's a brown horse right here, and you may not immediately notice, but there's a white horse right here. So we pulled over and I got out and I began taking pictures. And it was a really good stop. You should also notice all the clouds in the sky. I've taken many pictures of horses, but it is not often that I have such a wonderful background to photograph them in. This was wonderful. And as I began the photo shoot, the horses began taking some interest in me. They got up really close to where I was, and I wasn't exactly sure what they wanted at first. Luckily, it turned out they just wanted to be friendly and maybe even get some better poses for the big moment I was giving them. So my first stop ever in Minersville turned out to be something memorable. The reservoir was great, the horses were great, and Aunt Laura was great. Now it's time to head on to Cedar City, which is about 40 miles from Minersville. Now I've been to Cedar City many times, but this is the first time I've ever got there from this direction, and it was a nice drive. So what we're going to do is pull into town and get some lunch. And then we're going to go over to the Cedar City Temple and get some pictures of that and also get some pictures of the valley. The temple is built on a hill and has a wonderful view of the city. We stopped at the Cedar City Sizzler. I had my usual classic trio, steak, shrimp, and Malibu chicken. Doesn't that look wonderful? Now there's more unique places where we could have stopped, but on this road trip, on this day, I needed steak. After Cedar City, we took I-15 through St. George, a place where I frequently stop, but this time we went right on through to Arizona and had our next stop there. This is a very peculiar part of I-15 because it cuts right across the northwest corner of the state. And so when you're on this part of the freeway, you see a sign when you're leaving Utah is welcoming you to Arizona. And less than an hour later, you see another sign that says, "You're leaving Arizona. Come back again soon," or something like that. But it's one of the most interesting parts of I-15 because this is where the freeway cuts through the Virgin River Gorge, and that is actually where we stopped. More specifically, we stopped here at the Virgin River Campground. We're not actually in the campground at this point. We parked just outside of it. This mountain right here is one that I've photographed a number of times. It has some wonderful red and white colors to it, and it usually has some very nice skies in the background, as was the case on this day. So very nice to photograph. And a view from a little further over. You know, we would have loved to go into the campground at this point. The problem is the campground was actually closed. You know, I don't visit this campground a whole lot, but on the one day when I'm up for it, they've got it shut down. Some of my greatest road trip memories are of the Virgin River Gorge. And so it's kind of lame that this is all I have to show you in this video. However, I am planning to come back and make a video specifically about the Virgin River Gorge at a future time. But for now, let's get back on the road. Our next stop was at the Eagles Landing truck stop in Desert Springs, Arizona. It was only 9 miles from the Virgin River campground. Now, there's 2 Eagles Landings in Utah. One is in Beaver, Utah, and I stop at that one a lot. But this one here is brand new. It's the first one in Arizona. It was opened in May of 2019, so just a month before we got there. And here you see we're getting ready to pull off, and you can see the truck stop is right here by the exit. And here we are. There's the Eagles Landing sign, and this all looks very nice. It's a very nice truck stop. And we'll just have a look around for a bit. And here are their newly planted palm trees. And boy, are they new. I mean, look how new they are. They are still tied up. They haven't even untied them yet. This stop may seem a bit trivial, but as long as I've lived, there's never been anything to stop for in Desert Springs. And now there's a very nice truck stop. I'm impressed. And we are back on the road again. And we are also running low on light, as you can see. But we do have a sunset coming up. And one of the things that Laura and I were thinking was, where are we going to get some good sunset photos? And we actually did find a very good place. Our last stop before hitting Vegas was in Glendale, Nevada. This was about 47 miles from little field where we just were, and Vegas is just another 50 miles away, so we are almost there. But Glendale, Nevada is another small town, and it's another place where I've stopped quite a bit for breaks on my Vegas trips. So we get off I-15 and pull into the Arco station, park, and then we walk to about right here. And this is where we got our sunset photos. And we were not disappointed. The last 50 miles from Glendale to Las Vegas, we drove in the dark. So we didn't get any more photos, but we sure were glad to be back in Vegas. We got in at around 10 p.m. and we were so grateful that we had such a nice drive down. It was so beautiful, and it was honestly one of the funnest Vegas trips I've ever had. We stayed for 3 days in Las Vegas, visiting family and friends, and by the time we were ready to head back, we both felt alive and refreshed. It's the kind of refresher you can only get from a trip back home. Now, the drive back to Utah was also a lot of fun, and I'm planning to make a video about that. But for me, it's always the drive back to Vegas that is my hero's journey.